recovering borderline here. Um, Today is going to be this episode at least, is going to be a little bit more serious than what you're used to. We're moving on through the criteria, and the fifth criteria for borderline personality disorder per the DSM-V TR is, and I'm going to read it, this is the way it's reading. Number 5, recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures or threats, or self-mutilating behavior. Now, for the layman or the borderline, you're like, yeah, what's new? But for the people who aren't or don't have borderline personality disorder, I want to disclose right now, if you are having any thoughts of suicide, hurting yourself, or hurting somebody else, please tell somebody. Go to the hospital. Go to your nearest ER. Call the National Suicide Crisis Center hotline. There is no shame in going. Okay? I have to say that because this podcast is going to be on other platforms, and sometimes other platforms and their AI infinite wisdom, I don't know, they don't like the word suicide. They don't like, you have to say unalive yourself. You have, all this kind of stuff. So, because I'm just a burgeoning podcaster and I only have like 4 subscribers on any of my platforms, I guess I'm not really worried about being demonetized or anything. So, with that said, all right, so last week we talked about the whole impulsivity. So, impulsivity of like self-damaging areas like spending and substance abuse and reckless driving and blah, blah, blah. Well, this kind of bleeds into the whole reoccurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, and threats. And as a BPDer, we know that we just want to get away from the pain. We want to get away from that shitty situation that we've put ourselves in, or the shitty situations that have culminated up to this point. And you're like, okay, if I have one more failed relationship, one more person ghosts me, if I can't handle money, what is my, why? And then you just kind of spiral down and you're like, okay, ugh. And then you're like, why should I be here? Nobody loves me. Nobody wants to, and I'm not trying to say, oh, nobody loves me. I'm going to go eat worms. I'm talking about, like, why can't I sustain a relationship? Why can't I do what I like? I want, not like I can't do what I want to do, but why can't I have what I want to have? And it's not like, going to the bakery and going, oh, well, you're out of my favorite cake. No, I'm not talking about that, which is chantilly cake. But anyway, that's besides the point. But what I'm trying to say is, we want to get away from the pain. So, the emotional pain of what we're experiencing right then. And so what do? Is you like, you know what? I'm going to convert this thought. I'm going to turn this into physical pain because I know that when everything heals, it'll go away. Or when I don't know, it was when I overdosed. That was my thing. What I would do is I would, I I was a bit of a cutter, but I had a different, mode, and I'm not going to get into that because I don't. It's not like, ooh, I don't want to give you any ideas because you all have your methods and you've all thought about stuff. So it's like, everybody's like, oh, shh, don't talk about suicide because then you'll put that in their head. I'm like, no. For all those people that think that, we are like 5 steps ahead of you, okay? Way ahead. It. We live in suicidal ideation when it can be like a daily thing. It's like it can be just we're the type of people that if we have a bad day, stub our toe, I don't know, somebody doesn't text us back, we're like we don't go for like, oh man, what's up with this? Why? No, we were like, oh, they don't like me. I'm gonna off my, like, why should I be here? We go from 0 to 100 in like 2.6 seconds, and I'm gonna research why that happens because I wonder why we, you know, do that. Even though I'm a nurse, psych nurse practitioner, still within myself, because I'm wearing 2 hats. But anyway, so as you know, we try to get away from the pain. We know that physical pain is, well, maybe we don't. We just feel like we have to. Physical pain is a lot easier to bear than emotional pain because it gets it out of our head and onto our body. I don't know. That's how I'm thinking about it right now. And also, people who cut themselves or hurt themselves or land in the ER because they've gone too far and somebody found them or whatever. It's not, like, oh, they just want attention. Okay, for all you non-BPDers, you're full of shit. That's, please, that's really kind of mean because you don't understand. And if you don't like what I just said, then too bad. I can't help you. But we are just, this is our way because we're afraid that if we go and say to somebody without all the, we're afraid that people will be like, oh, it's okay, it's all right, suck it up, buttercup, and just think happy thoughts or go have a piece of cake or, go hiking, go out and exercise. And I'm like, yeah, ugh. You know what I say to that? This is a long debate that my shrink and I, it's like, oh, I used to exercise all the time, like when I was in medical school. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about you and how you coped because you're not me. You're not a borderline. So anyway, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is, yes, we're asking for help, but I think because we were shut down when we were little kids, and people, maybe we cried, quote, wolf too much, people were like, oh, it's just, she's just, uh, this is her, this is him, they'll get over it, but it manifests. And so you try to put on a brave face, and you put on a brave face, and you put on a brave face, and then the mask slips. It doesn't just slip, it falls fucking off. And that is where you get the outbursts and you get the, you get the look, if you're on the other end of a BPDR that has just scorched the earth beneath your feet, you get it. But the fact is, we have skewed the coping mechanism for asking for help. Because if you go up to a couple of, like the first criteria, frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So let's look at it this way. we felt abandoned, so we didn't trust anybody. Okay, we didn't trust anybody, and so our ability to trust people went out the window. People were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We got patted on the head and given a pack, like, oh, here's a present from, Saks Fifth Avenue or Neiman's. Here, go. Have a nice day. Don't bother me, kid. Um, so we had to find a different way of coping, which got twisted, sick and twisted. So we, I think I remember the first time that I did it. And actually, I didn't know that I did it. So I got mad. I was a little kid, probably like 5 or 6, and I got mad at my parents. Gee, big, big surprise. And I had, I went upstairs to my bedroom and I pulled out a drawer. It was like a clothing drawer or whatever, and it was the bottom one, and it landed on my big toe. I pulled it. I was in such a rage. I pulled out the drawer, and it landed on my big toe, and then I got this huge, and well, y'all know it hurts like a bitch. Um, and then it started to turn purple underneath my toenail, and I was like, I ran down to my dad, and you know, being the physician that he was, heartless at that. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, he was just like, it's okay, and that was the first time I think that I connected pain and being mad at myself and causing pain, even though I caused it indirectly. And then I got some help. And then I think a couple of years later, I was it was really weird. This is really weird. It's kind of coming back to me. It's all coming back to me. Um, I I guess I was playing with some cinder blocks that we had in the garage, and I was like dropping them on my finger, and I because I was lonely. There was nobody to play with. My brothers wouldn't play with me. My blah blah blah, and so now this is the beginnings of me. Okay, this is what I think. These are my thoughts. These are my beginnings of what I think started it. I'm not saying you did. I'm not saying this is what happens to all BPDers. So I'm just putting it out there, okay? Just putting it out there. But we have skewed the whole I'm having trouble, I need help, please help me. Because probably we have cried wolf too much, or people, when we've gone to get help from people, they might be going through some shit. They might be like, ugh, listen, I had a shit day. I can't deal with you. Or, you know what, I can't deal with you anymore. Please go, please go sell someplace else. So, and also, I don't think we really, in that moment, we don't want to be here. But we, in a way, we don't want to be here. I think sometimes, like, if we could only go and come back, come back when it's better, because even though, they say, oh, depression or suicide is a quick solution to, is a permanent problem to a transient solution. No, it's a permanent solution to a transient problem. Okay, but at that moment we don't see it. We just know of all the culmination of all the shit stuff that we feel, or I feel, let me put it that way, that, you're like, ugh, you're just done. And so I think I started getting tattoos. And I'm not saying that I'm like the tattooed lady at the carnival or anything like that, but I got my first tattoo was on my left wrist, and I was like, and then I was getting a sleeve on my right arm, like 20, no, actually 15 years later. And I was talking to my mental health provider, and I said, you know what? I think that people who get, getting a tattoo is kind of like a controlled, self mutilation type thing. If you really want to, I mean, even though my tattoo is beautiful and it's art and all that kind of stuff, I said, you know what? It's kind of like what is it, sublimation? Um, all you mental health practitioners, you can tell me if my defense mechanism is right. But if you can channel, I'm not saying everybody should go out and get tattoos, but I'm saying that, they also, they came up with, oh, and if you're a BPDR, you've already heard this before. Oh, go hold ice in your hands, or go hold ice with salt in your hands, because that hurts. I've never tried it, but to me, it's like, anything that somebody suggests you do that, I don't know, okay, we don't want you to cut yourself, but here, me being a not, here, I'm just a happy little mental health provider, and we've thought up a way of, you can hurt yourself without hurting yourself. And it's just like, really? Are you kidding me? Like, oh, please. There's something about having, like, no. Because if somebody endorses it, or somebody says, oh, here, do this instead of that, sometimes you're like, ugh, really? Ugh. So, what I'm trying to say is that if you are having suicidal ideations, go and talk to somebody. That is what your mental health provider is there for. Call the suicide hotline. Call somebody. Say, or, I used to go over to a friend's house. If you have the ability, I would say, listen, I don't want to talk. I just want to be around somebody. Because sometimes just being around somebody and not having to verbalize and not having to explain, they already know. Because if they're your friend or your good friend, they already know what you're like. And so if you can, that's great. If not, then try and find a way to get out of, let me see. Because if I say, oh, we'll try and do something to get out of that suicidal space, you're gonna run to it, because that's what we do. Okay, mental health providers, don't say, oh, well, here's an alternative. No, you need to explore. You need to drill down, and you need to explore what and why that person is wanting to perform that act with that ideation, right? That, like, what is going on in their world at that moment, or what has been going that's triggering this, because it's different, it's each, even though they say, hey, I had a, I got dumped for the umpteenth time, and nobody loves me, and I'm not beautiful, or I'm not this, I'm not that, I wasn't what they, and so I'm gonna cut myself. Well, they're like, well, hey, if I'm not beautiful, then I'm not gonna make myself beautiful, okay? And also, that could be something. So don't just lump their their SI and their attempts as, oh, this is them. I'm starting to think that, like, it has to do with the situation or the stress and the issue that they're having right then and have gone through. So you have to, I think, drilling down and being specific and going, okay, you got dumped. Well, don't say like, you got dumped. He ghosted you. She ghosted you. She used you for sex. She, blah, blah, blah. And be like, okay, what, and look at their behavior. What did they do to harm themselves? And then I think you might be able to start breaking through to why, at least for that session. Because when I call myself the recovering borderline, that's what I am. I'm recovering. I'm always going to be in recovery because every day, sometimes I feel like I am battling the thoughts that used to be front and center in my mind. Okay? And now they're just a low roar. I can deal with them. And if they're really bad, I can say to my mental health provider, I'm like, hey, I'm having a little trouble right now. Can you not can you fit me in 5 minutes? I'm just saying, like, I'll say, listen, I need to talk to you now. Or can we make an appointment? Can I just check in? Something like that. Because if you have a really good relationship with your provider and they know that you go from 0 to 100 in 2.6 seconds, then they'll be like, oh, okay. Because as a provider, if a borderline is asking you this, I'm not saying step and fetch it, or, I'm just saying make note, because shit's going downhill, okay? And I'm not saying that they're on the brink of doing anything weird, but just say, okay, hey, can I check in with you, tomorrow? Because, and I'm sorry to say to you, BPDrs, and I'm talking to the mental health providers, if you say, oh my gosh, okay, all right, I'll talk to you in 5 minutes, then your patient's got you hooked. You're like, ugh, come on, really? And then they start talking to you and they think that their big deal is, it is, but if they start talking like, oh, I bounced a check, or something that's not totally catastrophic, then you need to place boundaries, but we can talk about that later. I'm just saying that if your BPDer calls you up and says, hey, I need to talk, I need to check in, be like, oh, okay. And then, make an appointment. So, anyway, it's getting to be 25 minutes and it's kind of long, so let me know what you think. But this is, and I might talk a little bit more about it kind of on the, 8th episode? I don't know. I think I'm going to stop doing the episodes because I can't remember them. But live well, be happy, as I just, or not be happy, I don't care. But get help, understand, and I'll talk to you later. Like, subscribe, and share, whatever. Bye.